Hello, wrestling fans, old school wrestling fans, I guess, in particular, but wrestling fans in general. And welcome to this sort of special review. This is going to be jumping back 30 years again now. In fact, 30 years ago tomorrow it'll be, and that is to the 5th of January 1991 and the edition of WWF Superstars of Wrestling. And I think this is probably one of the early superstars, but anyway, just to set this up, because I'm getting nostalgic for older wrestling, of course, as always, and because, the world is moving on and getting a bit older, and as I said, this 91 now is like 30 years ago, which is insane because I don't remember it that clearly, but I sort of remember it quite well, and it was part of my youth and me growing up. So it is sort of a sign of the times that it's now 30 years, and just to think of this really, wrestling and how things have changed. So I thought what I'd do is on these videos I would like go through a year sort of thing, and obviously since it's 30 years I've chosen 91. I'll cover the TV shows, I'll cover the pay-per-views. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and do WCW as well as the WWF for this year. And same deal, covered both TV shows and pay-per-views. Now, I'm relying on YouTube and I'm relying on what they've got on the network, so it's possible I might not be able to do everything, but I'll certainly do as much as I can from this year from both companies. So should be some interesting stuff. Now, what I'll say straight away is then for anyone who watched wrestling back here, when you watch like an episode of Superstars, for example, you're probably going to know that most of the matches are like what they call jobber matches. So obviously you get like enhancement style guys who are there just to put like the bigger stars over, like the main roster over. So a lot of times there's not that much interest in going on in the actual matches. The shows are kind of more to hype up the pay-per-view and main storylines that's going on at the time. So I just mention this because with a lot of these, for like Superstars, for example, I'm not really going to give like match ratings. Once in a while I might for a jobber match if it kind of stands out. But in general, I'm not really going to give match ratings for jobber matches. Obviously, it's different if it's an actual, kind of competitive match, if it feels like a competitive match. But I'll cover the general sort of tone. Obviously, when I get to pay-per-views and stuff, that's different because they're all supposed to be competitive and stuff. But anyway, so I'm going to start off with the 5th of January 1991 and the Superstars of Wrestling. And we open the year with the Ultimate Warrior as the WWF champion, having dethroned Hulk Hogan in their Ultimate Challenge, champion versus champion, at the previous year's WrestleMania 6, one of the most iconic events and main events in WWF history. I guess you just had to be around in 1990 to appreciate just what a spectacle that match was, and the match itself really was something, and it was much better than anyone had any hope for it to be, really, considering how limited both guys are in the ring, especially Warrior. I think Hogan maybe deserves a lot of credit for that match. He really put in a big shift and was kind of, led the match in many ways, even though the end of the match and the post-match is sort of famously talked about as Hogan kind of going in for business for himself, making the Warrior look bad and all that kind of thing. And I'm not going to make a judgment here on that. I'm not going to say, hey, screw you, Hogan, you were a son of a bitch. Because obviously that's a story for a different day. But I'm just saying that's kind of what history claims, and a lot of people feel that that's what Hogan was doing, and obviously in the long run Hogan sort of got the last laugh with that, because Warrior, he never lived up to the hype as WWF champion. He had been a very successful wrestler as Intercontinental champion, and obviously certainly probably at the time second only to Hogan when it came to start, the name of the company or merchandise. I mean, maybe Macho Man as well, someone like that. But certainly Warrior felt like he was tailor-made to take over from Hogan. Hogan had ambitions to go to Hollywood. He felt it was time for a change. He wanted to have a go at movies, and likewise history has shown that didn't work out. And I guess in a way it worked out for both sides, because Hogan, obviously after a small spell away doing movies, he was kind of brought back into the fold, sort of. I mean, he never really did a full-time schedule, but he kind of returned full-time, if you like, at least for a while. He left again in '92, but yeah, it kind of worked out for him, because Warrior didn't succeed on top. He just never pulled the ratings or the crowds, or he just, no. He never quite transferred, the success he had in the, first of all mid-card and then the upper mid-card. Obviously he's a main event player, no doubt about it, but actually on top as champion, he never did the business. So, but we go into the year with him as the champion, and he's set to face Sergeant Slaughter at the Royal Rumble, put the belt on the line, and obviously that's a very interesting result and storyline going into that. Slaughter's recently turned heel, the whole Iraqi sympathizer gimmick, which got a lot of heat around this time. And obviously we're building up to the Royal Rumble match itself, the sort of big headliner. And I'll talk about that when I get to it, but I guess I'll just say then, this maybe feels like the first year where the Royal Rumble winner sort of became number one contender, if you liked, faced the champion at Mania and all that, or that's the idea. Although they didn't say that officially, I think I got that impression from, who wins the Rumble and that sort of thing, but I'll talk more about that anyway. So Superstars, it opens with the Warrior kind of in like the titles is this over the top opening. He kind of has, lightning almost is sort of paint on his chest sort of lighting up. It's sort of insane stuff, really. Over the top, very much of its time. And then we cut to the show. You've got Vince McMahon, Rowdy Roddy Piper, and the Honky Tonk Man as the three announcers. Interesting mix there. Not a bad threesome, actually, I have to say. Piper on commentary I do find quite annoying, although he sort of has his moments. He's not terrible. He's not as bad as some people on there, but yeah, he never quite got the handle, I don't think, on commentary. Honky's a decent enough heel announcer, and he's quite sort of dry and sarcastic and comes off quite well. I think he's quite a nice foil for Vince and Piper, but anyway, they were doing commentaries around this time, and they hype up the Warrior Slaughter match, and Honky describes Slaughter as a Dutch master of all things. So the opening match, Texas Tornado against Tom Stone. So Stone's obviously the jobber, and Tornado is feuding with the $1 Million Man around this time. He's not too long come into the company, Tornado, I think. Well, he's been 5 or 6 months. He, of course, had a brief run with the IC title, not long after debut, and being Perfect in what was seen as an upset, but Perfect quickly got it back. But yeah, they say he's feuding with DiBiase at this time, and does he have a price for the $1 million man, as most people seem to do? And Tornado rolls through Stone very quickly. He uses the claw, and then later, the spinning discus punch for the 1-2-3. Then we go to the first of more than 2 or 3, I think, Mean Gene's Royal Rumble update. So we get a Macho and Sherry promo, Sensational Sherry, and Macho puts a bit of pressure on the Warrior because he's basically saying it'll be a non-title match at the Rumble, hinting that he will be champion before they get there. And I actually really like this whole storyline and the way it keeps Macho relevant, because obviously he's one of the top guys around this time, and he had been feuding with the Warrior for the best part of a year, I think. So it's a good way to keep Macho in the picture, and especially since, after Warrior drops the belt, he's then going to go on and face Macho at WrestleMania. So it's a good way to keep Macho involved and gives him a purpose, because legitimately Macho is one of the top guys in the country, in the company. And Warrior, as the face, I think has a case for saying, hey, I've beaten you now. I've given you 2 or 3 title shots. I've beaten you. You've not been able to beat me, so I'm moving on to other contenders. But at the same time, yeah, it's a good way to keep Macho involved. And it's actually, because this is 2 weeks before the Rumble, so I'm sort of assuming that there's like house show matches between Warrior and Macho. So maybe, yeah, it's sort of a clever little way to kind of hype those up as well if they're coming to your town. So that's pretty cool. And we get them Mean Gene interviewing Warrior, which is pretty weak, generic promo, but he's wearing earrings for some reason. I don't remember ever seeing Warrior wear earrings, but that's pretty funny. Then we cut to the next match, Warlord with the Doctor of Style, Slickster, baby, against Danny Steele. And Warlord is feuding with the Bulldog around this time. They're going to face eventually at WrestleMania, but it's quite a nice little big man feud. It sort of makes sense. Warlord has gone singles after spending most his WWF career as a tag team, and Bulldog, not too long since he's arrived in the company or returned. He obviously was originally in a tag team with the Dynamite Kid, but yeah, Bulldog's back, and it's quite a decent little feud to get the Bulldog over, if you like, to kind of propel him up the card. And yeah, easy win obviously for Warlord with his full Nelson. A gut wrench buster sends the Jobber flying, and yeah, gets the win with the full Nelson obviously. Then we get some Rumble promos, probably the best of which is Bret Hart. He calls himself the coolest of the cool. Superfly, really boring promo. You also have Brother Love with the Undertaker, so this is a rare sort of sight because of course he actually managed Taker at the start of his run in WWF, but didn't last long. Of course, Bearer later took over, but it's pretty cool to see this early Undertaker being managed by Brother Love. And man, he mentions the Jonestown Massacre in this, sort of hyping up the Rumble and what it's going to look like when Taker gets in there. That was pretty dark stuff from Brother Love. But it's actually quite clever because of his whole religious stick, so it actually ties in quite nicely. But wow, he went somewhere with that promo. Next up, JT Smith versus Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and I think you can tell with these jobber names that they just assign them the most generic names. I mean, maybe they draw them out of the hat, who knows, but actually, the highlight of this match is definitely Smith when he nicks Duggan's 2x4 at the start of the match, which is priceless. Starts waving it about, teasing him, and wow, what a pro, what a jobber this guy is. But then Duggan flatters him in like a few seconds, running clothesline for the win. But yeah, props to Smith for that spot. I enjoyed that. More promos hyping up the Rumble, more participants. You've got Tugboats, you've got DiBiase in here, and you've got the Rhodes family, who are talking about their tag match at the Rumble actually. So Dusty and Dustin, who will face DiBiase and Virgil at the Royal Rumble. So yeah, a lot of people forget that Dustin Rhodes, before he went to WCW, was had a cup of coffee in the WWF before obviously returning years later to take on the role of Goldust. So there you have it. That's more hype for the Rumble. Then we get a special Brother Love show with Hulk Hogan, nonetheless, and decent little segment here. Love basically warns Hogan to beware of an earthquake, and also to watch out for Dino Bravo over the other shoulder, because Hogan is still feuding with Earthquake at this time, and Hogan obviously cuts him down to size. He sort of says that basically he's the only natural disaster in the Royal Rumble. So yeah, quite a nice little promo. We get another Mean Gene special report hyping up the Rumble, of course. And this is quite cool because they actually show us footage from last year's, like the end of the Rumble, the last sort of 5. I mean, they don't show you the very end, but they show you that it ends up with Warrior and Hogan both in the ring, the final 2, and them squaring off. And yeah, it's sort of basically just promoting that it is truly every man for himself in the Royal Rumble. So that was quite a nice touch. We get more promos. Actually, the standout from these promos, Ted DiBiase, again talking about the tag match at the Rumble. He is at like sort of like a barn, like a rodeo type barn, and he's got the cowboy hat on, and he's just like ripping the shit out of Dusty, and at one point he drops the hat and gets like soil on it, gets dirt, and he makes Virgil get down on his hands and knees and clean it up. How demeaning for poor Virgil. But DiBiase does that classic maniacal laugh that we all love, and I'll try it. That's the best I can do. I think mine sounds more like Boise out of Only Fools and Horses, but there you have it. It's a cool little segment, and it's obviously setting the table for Virgil and his sort of face turn coming up actually soon, in a couple of weeks. So again, it's a good example of how they really built things up back here, how they thought things out and started setting the seeds, 2 or 3 weeks, sometimes months down the line. Very rarely happens now. Next up, final match is the Orient Express against a couple of jobbers. And this got a little titter from me because they're called apparently the Mookie Brothers, however you say that. And yeah, standard job really. They got a little bit of offense in the jobbers, but not much. And highlight of the match is Kato's reverse flying forearm, which just looks fantastic, and very underrated team, the Orient Express. I love seeing them, and they're going to open up the Rumble against the Rockers, so opening match, and it's one of my favourite opening matches from any pay-per-view, actually, that one. So I look forward to talking about it. More Rumble promos. We get one of the Bushwhackers. I didn't notice which one. Perfect. Dino Bravo. And, well, the model also, the Anvil, didn't I? So they're stuffing them in there. And that's it. That's the show. That's Superstars from the 5th of January, 1991. When I return next time, I will be talking about a WCW TV show from around this time. So thanks for listening. Like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments sort of what, if you have any memories from around this time and what you thought of stuff going on in either promotion. But I'll be back with more old school wrestling reviews soon. Thanks and goodbye.